What is up everyone? So for this video I have decided to pick the best budget looking knives for under 350 euros, and in my opinion anything under 300 euros is a budget knife, or overall a budget skin. So I will be showing you the best budget knives in my opinion for under 350 euros. So here we have Ursus Crimson Web in field tested condition, and for this one I picked float 0.3 exactly. Even in worse float you might see some scratches on the handle. As you can see, you can also see some here, but it's not that noticeable as the handle is hidden in your hand. So this one is amazing, and the reason I picked the Crimson Web is because it has the black handle on the Ursus, as the Ursus usually has a green handle, but that makes it a really good budget choice, and it costs only 200 euros. It's really not that bad. Ursus has great animations, looks amazing in my opinion. You can pair it with some maybe blood pressure gloves or Crimson Web gloves, and there you go. Up next we have Shadow Daggers Dopplers and Gamma Dopplers. So you can pretty much buy any face. The range goes from like 160 euros to 220 euros. It's really not that bad. I know most people hate the Shadow Daggers, but realistically you're getting a Doppler finish for such a cheap price, and because the knives are so cheap you can also afford to get some gloves. So I do recommend these Shadow Daggers if you don't mind obviously the Shadow Daggers. Again, you can afford any Doppler or Gamma Doppler. Here we have Huntsman Lore in minimal wear condition for 200 euros. Huntsman is comparable to Cut Knife because of its animation, but honestly with the lore finish it looks amazing. And if you want to pair this knife with some gloves, could use transport gloves if you want a more yellow theme, but I recommend using racing green gloves just because the handle of the lore knives is also green, so it pairs really nicely and it makes that yellow on the blade pop off even more, making the overall combo look really creative and fresh. Up next we have Stiletto Rust Coat in ballast guard condition with a very high float if you can find one. This costs about 225 euros, and honestly the reason why Stiletto Rust Coat is so good is because the handle pairs really well with the rust coat finish, especially in high float. As I said, you don't have to get very high float. You can, look at different floats. If you like more dark brown, go for higher float. If you like more light brown, go for lower float. Obviously it has to be bell scarred, otherwise it's not gonna be rusty at all. This knife is good for those people who don't really care what the knife looks like. Stiletto is mostly for people who don't care about the knife. Even though in my opinion the knife looks really clean, it is small and I don't know, it just feels nice in the hand, especially when it's flipping around like this. Now for the rust coat, you could pair it with constrictor gloves for example, giving you that brown combo if you really want a brown team. Up next we have the brand new Survival Knives Dopplers ranging from 300 euros to 340 euros. Now obviously the phase 2 and phase 1 are more expensive, but if you prefer the blue phase, obviously the phase 4 and the phase 3, you can find it for like 300 euros, 310, but again the prices range from 300 to 340, so it's not that big of a deal even if you want a phase 2 or phase 1. Honestly, the survival knife, some people might argue that it looks bad. There is no animation pretty much, but in my opinion I think the knife is pretty clean for a budget knife, and you get a Doppler finish for such a steep price. You can also afford some gloves. You're looking for a combo for let's say under 500 euros. Could get polygon gloves. Obviously the Cobalt Skulls are a better option, but they are more expensive, so this is not a bad option for a Doppler knife. Up next we have Survival Tiger Tooth in factory new condition obviously for 180 euros. So again, survival knife looks really clean. Tiger Tooth finish really nice. It has this metallic shine to it. Who doesn't like a tiger tooth, let's be real? And it's only 180 euros. That is nothing. You can afford honestly amazing gloves. Tiger Strikes are a bit expensive, but if you have the budget for it, I would go for Tiger Strikes. You could go for yellow gloves, but they don't really pair well with tiger tooth since they are orange, more orangey. But yeah, even without gloves, this knife looks amazing in my opinion, and for 180 euros you're getting a tiger tooth knife. Up next we have Ursus Night Stripe in field tested condition for 125 euros only. Now if you're on a really big budget, this knife is an amazing option. Overall the Night Stripe knives are, I think, a really solid option, as most people like the darker colors, pairing it even nicely with the default gloves, so you don't even really need gloves. Obviously you can get some if you want, maybe broken fang gloves, or overall the Ursus knife is just a great option. You have lots of lots of budget finishes, and I honestly do recommend it if you're on a really tight budget. Up next, we have Ursus Ultraviolet in field tested condition for 160 euros only. Just like the Crimson Web, you can see this one has a purple handle instead of the usual green on the Ursus knives. And honestly, if you're looking for a purple team inventory or gloves, you will struggle as there's only Imperial plates and Penderose boxes. Obviously, Penderose boxes are way too expensive to even think about. Imperial plates are also expensive, like ranging from I think 400 euros upwards. Maybe you could find some for 300 euros, but that's rare. And honestly, even without gloves, this knife slaps. Again, Ursus has great animations, looks clean, and the finish looks really nice on the Ursus. Up next, we have Bowie Autotronic in field tested condition for 155 euros. Some people might dislike the Bowie because it's so big, but for finishes like Autotronic, it makes the knife look really nice. Especially with the Bowie, it has some nice accents. For example, this green dot that you see on the handle gives it a really nice accent to the overall color palette. Also, the handle looks quite a bit different from the usual Autotronic knives, very similar to the gut knife in that aspect. And honestly, the Bowie looks really clean in my opinion, especially now that you can see the left hand, makes it look better. And yeah, Autotronic finish looks always nice, a nice metallic finish with a blend of red and silver. You don't even need gloves, but you could pair it with cheaper gloves as this knife is not expensive either. Up next, we have Bowie Damascus Steel in minimal wear condition for 145 euros. Again, Bowie has great animations and the Damascus Steel looks clean always in my opinion. For gloves, I would recommend maybe unhinged gloves. Unhinged gloves you can find for like 80 bucks in field tested condition, maybe 100 euros, something like that. So that combo would cost you maybe 250 euros. That's nothing for a nice silvery combo. Up next, we have Bowie Tiger Tooth in factory new condition for 220 euros. So if you didn't like the previous survival Tiger Tooth, I think Bowie is a better option, especially if you take a look at the handle accent. It's very like golden color, makes the knife look overall more polished, overall better on your screen. When you're looking around, you can just see that nice shine on the accent. Up next, we have Huntsman Black Laminate in minimal wear condition for 140 euros. Now, in my opinion, the Huntsman is really clean. Despite the gut knife animation, I think the knife is really clean. Like the design just fits really nicely with the hand of the agent. I really like Huntsman knives that are really good budget option. And as you can see, you can find some really nice options for quite a cheap price, honestly. You're spending 140 euros on a knife, you might as well get some nice gloves. For the black laminates, I would recommend black tie gloves. They're quite a bit expensive if you want them to look good, but if you don't mind the scratches, you can find some really nice options. Up next, we have Huntsman Blue Steel in field tested condition for 170 euros. Now, overall, the blue steel knives aren't really that blue. They look more like night knives. It's a really dark blue, and honestly, you don't even need gloves, to be honest. When you're in the dark, the knife pretty much looks completely black almost. You know, just makes it feel nicer. If you really want a simple black color, black combo, the blue steels are a go-to. They're not expensive and they look good on every single knife. Up next, we have the Paracord Fade in factory condition for 290 euros. We actually do have a Fade knife for a budget of under 300 euros, which is amazing. Some people might not like the Paracord knife, but I think it looks really clean just because the handle is hidden almost completely, just like with the skeleton knives. So it makes the finish pop up even more. And you know, the Paracord has some decent animations, nothing too fancy, but I think it's quite nice for the price, to be fair. Again, you're getting a fade finish, so you can't really complain here. The finish is amazing, the knife is amazing, and for 290 euros, you cannot really complain. Up next, we have Paracord Slaughter in factory new condition for 230 euros. So, just like the Fade, the Slaughter finish looks really nice regardless of the knife. Now, I'm not really a fan of the Slaughter color palette, but if you like Slaughter knives, this is a really good budget option in my opinion. You can also pair it with maybe needlepoint gloves. Needlepoints pair decently with these Slaughter combos, especially with the cheaper knives. So I would recommend that if you're looking for a Slaughter combo. Up next, we have the newer Paracord Tiger Tooth in factory new condition for 200 euros. And again, if you previously didn't like the Bowie or the Survival, I think paracord is your best choice here. Looks really clean, to be fair. Again, I really like paracord knives. Really solid option for people who are on a tight budget. As you can see, you have some really nice finishes for quite a cheap price. And again, Tiger Tooth looks good no matter the knife, and a paracord is a really good budget option. Up next, we have the Nomad Ultraviolet in field tested condition for 230 euros. Now, if you're a fan of a professional knife, you know, looking clean, I think Nomad is your best bet. It looks really clean, and it's a great budget option. The design of the knife is just really good. The animations are really nice, and the ultraviolet finish looks nice regardless of the knife, and you get one for quite a cheap price. If you don't like the Ursus, you should go for the Nomad. Up next, we have the Nomad Damascus Steel in field tested condition for 240 euros. Now, similar to the Bowie, Damascus Steel looks insane on a Nomad in my opinion, just because it's even more silvery than the Bowie. If you dislike the small handle on the Nomad, then you should go for the Bowie. But if you dislike the big handle on the Bowie, then go for Nomad. Now, obviously, the Nomad is 100 euros more expensive, but I think it's a good choice because Damascus Steel looks good regardless of the finish, and you can get some cheap gloves, for example, duct tape gloves or unhinged gloves. Up next, we have the Nomad Night Stripe in minimal wear condition for 180 euros. Now, this is a great alternative if you dislike the Ursus Night Stripe, but in my opinion, I think the Ursus looks cleaner, at least for the Night Stripe finish. Again, you can't deny that the Nomad does look clean, but for my personal taste, I would pick the Ursus instead of the Nomad. And again, this is a great budget choice if you like a darker theme. Up next, we have the Skeleton Night Stripe in field tested condition for 260 euros. Now, as you can see, out of these three, the Ursus, the Nomad, and the Skeleton, I think the Skeleton looks the best just because it has the cleanest design out of those three, and it's not even that expensive. For 260 euros, you're getting a Skeleton, and it's a nice clean finish. You don't even need gloves with this knife, so it's not a bad option if you prefer the darker comp. Up next, we have the Falchion Autotronic in minimal wear condition for 180 euros. Now, I'm not a fan of the Falchion, but you cannot deny that it has some great animations like this, and the Autotronic finish looks clean regardless of the knife, even though in my opinion on the Falchion the blade is quite small, so the Autotronic finish doesn't really get to shine as much. But still, for 180 euros, it's not a bad option, and you can pair it with some nice gloves, with some nice broken fan gloves, for example. Overall, it's not a bad option. Up next, we have the Falchion Marble Fade in factory new condition for 270 euros. We actually have a Marble Fade finish for a budget price. Again, the Falchion is quite small, but you do get to see lots of colors of the Marble Fade on the Falchion regardless of its size. Now, in my opinion, overall, the Marble Fade knives are quite washed out in CS2. They were much better in CSGO, but if you do like the rainbow colors, then go for the Marble Fade. And again, Falchion is quite a good choice if you're on a tight budget but really want a Marble Fade knife. Up next, we have the Falchion Tiger Tooth in factory new condition for 250 euros. Now, if you didn't like the previous Tiger Tooth knives, then you do have the Falchion as an option as well, although I wouldn't really recommend it, as it looks, in my opinion, looks really bad because of the size of the knife. Finishes like this, like Tiger Tooth Dopplers, stuff like that, they should be on a big blade in my opinion, or if they're not on a big blade, the knife design needs to be great. Like for example on a karambit or a butterfly. They have small blades, but the design of the overall knife is really great, making the finish pop off greatly. Now on the Falchion really doesn't have any of that. Neither the design or the size of the blade is really good. But again, if you like the Falchion for its animations or the design, you should go for it. And again, the Tiger Tooth is not a bad option. And lastly, we have Cat Knife Doppler and Gamma Dopplers ranging from 180 euros to 240 euros. Now for this example, I picked the Gamma Doppler Phase 2 just to show off, you know, if you want a green combo, you can get it. For the gloves, for example, for this combo, for the gloves, you could get bronze morph gloves, maybe 250 euros. So overall, you can get a really nice combo for like 500 euros, a little less. And honestly, it's not a bad option if you don't mind the gut knife. Again, you're getting a gamma Doppler and a Doppler finish. Even though the knife might be ugly, you don't really need animations if the combo is amazing, in my opinion. But if you do prefer the animations, then the cut knife is not for you. So those were all the knives in my opinion. If you want a part 2 or if you have any recommendations, feel free to comment down below and I will make sure to do those ideas for the next videos. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you have a great day and see you in the next one. Bye bye.